Do you want to be in the video? You want to be in the video? No? Okay, you look really uncomfortable. Okay, let's see if Angela wants to be in it. Oh, now she's mad. Bella, stop! Jeez, leave him alone. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone's staying safe out there. So today's video is on a topic that you guys ask me to discuss all the time, and I've definitely dragged my feet a little bit in doing it, not because I've been pessimistic about politics. I feel like I've more so been nihilistic about politics, which is crazy because I feel like I used to always say nihilism was like intellectual laziness and just feeling like everything sucks is just an excuse to not talk about fixing things, but I relate to it now. Lately, especially, I felt like everything political just sucks and I can't add to it, but this is something I can add to. So let's talk about Trump and the trans community. Disclaimer, this is a video that you're probably not going to grasp my full opinion unless you watch the entire thing. This is one of those videos that I also want to do kind of chronological, like I want to start at the beginning of the Trump presidency until now and discuss everything. So before we do this very deep dive, I am so excited to announce that this video is sponsored by Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN. If you don't know what a VPN is, it's basically an app/browser extension that allows you to place your browser anywhere in the world. The purpose of that is to surf the internet safely and anonymously. It allows you to access and unblock websites and certain social media networks that otherwise you might not be able to visit. I use it because it actually adds an extra layer of security when I'm on the internet to protect my passwords, my pictures, my videos, everything. Another thing is that Surfshark is amazing because it allows you to stay safe on public Wi-Fi, which is a great commodity, but also a goldmine for hackers. Surfshark is the only VPN that allows you to use one account on as many devices as you want, which is amazing. You can use my code Blaire for 85% off as well as 3 months completely free. They also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's really no risk. The link is of course in the description, so check them out. Okay, so Trump and the trans community. I really want to get into how Trump, I would imagine, and I speculate how he actually feels about transgender people. I'll get into that. But first, we're going to get into what has been really frustrating for me the entire presidency, which has been, I feel like transgenderism by both sides has been used as a political football whenever it's convenient. And you know, I stand by what I have always said, which is that transgenderism is not to be politicized. It is to be medicalized. It is to be treated as a medical issue, not a political talking point. So you can imagine the past 4 years have been a little bit frustrating for me. What I've noticed since 2016 is that every 6 months or so, there's some new, very scary sounding, very shocking trans headline. And it is always something to the effect of all of our rights are being stripped, our lives are in danger, and the trans community, like I said, every 6 months because of these stories just goes into complete hysteria and panic mode. And it actually started with the election itself. On the day of the election, there was a story ran that after he won, it was either 8 or 10 transgender children committed suicide. Huge trans influencers like Gigi Gorgeous and really every single other one made videos about it, ran with it like it was true. 8 transgender kids had committed suicide. I was, like, my stomach, I just got goosebumps, like my stomach turned. And it was actually scary even for me. The trans community was rightfully horrified because obviously if that were true, that's an insane, horrible tragedy. The problem is that it was 1,000% false. It was so false that GLAAD had to come out a few days later and say that we shouldn't be spreading that because it's completely unverified and completely untrue. In fact, it was one verified Twitter user that said it and said they had a private source confirming it, and suddenly it was being reported as fact. So to me, that was the beginning of the politicization of trans issues in the last 4 years, was that right there in the beginning. So let's jump forward to 2017, the Trump military ban, trans military ban. So this was the beginning of actual policy decisions being made by the administration about trans people. I understand the argument in which it is not ideal for trans people to serve in certain capacities, the front lines, very specific example. I think the reliance on trans-specific medication, hormones obviously, and the fact that often they are placed in countries where they're very vulnerable because they are trans, like think about, I don't know, like me fighting in Iran, like what? Like, obviously, in countries where it's illegal or dangerous, that can compromise the effectiveness of certain operations by having a trans person in the mix. I did feel, however, that banning them under any and every capacity, we're talking cooks, we're talking medics and doctors and, you know, coders. Like, there are a lot of positions in the military that are not directly on the front lines fighting. In fact, the overwhelming majority of them are not. And I just can't think of a reason why a trans person couldn't be like a cook, or if they're a talented nurse, you know? Having said all that, there is something to be said for the fact that the military denies people joining for a lot of reasons, and a lot of those reasons may even seem silly. Like, if you have even the slightest bit of anxiety, you cannot be in the military. If you have not great eyesight, you cannot be in the military. If you have gauges in your ears, tattoos in certain places, if you are overweight, depression, OCD, none of those things you can join the military with. They will deny you. And so to me, thinking, you know, I understand how crippling gender dysphoria is, so I actually do understand the argument that that would be something that would hurt the effectiveness of people in the military. So, you know, I feel like if someone were to pay me to debate both sides, like, Blaire, here's, I don't know, $500, like, debate why trans people should be allowed in the military indefinitely, I could do that. If someone was like, Blaire, here's $500 to debate why they should never be in, I could probably do that too. It's very much a gray area of a topic. But honestly, I felt like it was way too sweeping, like I said. So let's jump to early 2018. The next big trans headline was that Trump was forcing the CDC to ban the word transgender from any and all documents. There are other words allegedly being banned, but this is obviously about the trans stuff. This was completely fake, like 110% fake. This did not happen. CNN has come out and said this did not happen, but yet it was a viral story that every trans influencer and every person that the trans community looks to as one of our defenders ran with. And the problem with running with fake stories is that the fake story will get a lot of attention up front, but the correction will get maybe 1/10 of the attention. So I think there are probably a lot of people, maybe even some of you guys, let me know in the comments, who still think that the word transgender is banned from the CDC documents. No, it just never happened. Ask CNN, ask anyone. Like, it didn't happen. Next up, jump to fall 2018. And this time, the big trans everyone be scared headline was that trans people would no longer exist under law. This one came right before midterms because I think if you really pay attention, you'll notice that the most salacious, fear-mongering stories, especially as it relates to certain minority groups, will always come around elections. We have Steph Signotti doing a video that got hundreds of thousands of views saying trans people will no longer exist, and the gist of it was that trans people would no longer be able to change their gender legally as it pertains to certain documents like birth certificates, driver's license, social security. All those are things that I changed before 2018, but I know an immense amount of people in all states who have changed it since then. This literally just never happened. It just wasn't a thing. I can get into the nitty gritty, but all you need to know is it didn't happen. But the entirety of the trans community was believing that it did, and all of our influencers were saying that it was true. Very sad. And the problem is that every single time that one of these stories comes out saying that it's the end of trans people, right? Like, I'll know it comes out because my DM is just flooded with young trans people scared and asking me for help and guidance and saying, like, can you please help? Like, it really does set the community into an emotional uproar. It does. So let's jump to something recent. Last month, Pride Month, you might have seen that it came out and the new headline was that Trump was removing all healthcare for all trans people. That was the big thing, right? So this hit during Pride Month, and not just any Pride Month. It hit during, obviously, June, and even now, July, about to be August. It's a very emotionally heightened time as it pertains to social issues, everything happening in the world, obviously. Like, this type of headline is going to really set people off. The problem is that, again, this didn't happen. I debunked it in an article in the Post Millennial. You can go read that and get every single detail. But the long and short of it is that these protections that were supposedly being repealed that protected trans people were never actually set in place. They were actually proposed and then struck down before Trump ever took office. Like, this isn't even a defense of Trump. This isn't even a defense of anything. This is just literally the media emotionally manipulating trans people and people who care about trans people into thinking something is happening when it's really not. These protections were struck down in court before he was president. How can he repeal something that never was put in place? It doesn't make sense. But it was too perfect of a storm to come out during Pride Month, one of the craziest Pride months ever, obviously, 2020. And people were just not, and they might still not, be prepared to hear or ready to accept that that wasn't the whole truth. Or really, that wasn't the truth at all. Healthcare, as it pertains to trans people, is exactly the same as it was last year, the year before that, the year before that. But once again, the emotions of the trans community and the people who care about us and the clicks that we provide is just way too great for the media to pass up. Doesn't really matter if it's not true. They're still gonna run with it. And it sucks. So let's get into how Trump feels about trans people. Now, anyone can only speculate. Like, no one knows how someone really feels, right? My gut and everything I've seen over the past 4 years, which, keep in mind, I am very plugged into trans issues. Obviously, it's my career, it's my life. Like, I've watched every news story coming out about trans people since he took office. My gut is that he probably doesn't really know what transgenderism is, at least not to the extent for which it exists in 2020, like what people think of it now. What likely is the case is that transgenderism is such a culture war hot button issue that I feel that the instance of like the trans military ban, I feel like he could have won his whole presidency without doing that and none of his base would have complained. But it was red meat to the segment of his base that maybe does feel a certain way about trans people. And so I feel that he did that partly, at least, because it gave his base something that they can say, oh, good job on. I don't think he had to do that. I feel like it was unnecessary, 110%. Like, call me pessimistic, but I really don't feel that those in the media and in politics have like a true, like, genuine care, and that includes Trump, like a genuine care about the trans issue. I think for most people, whether it be Trump, whether it be the media, whether it be all the talking heads and figureheads that are coming up in your mind right now, I think it's just one of those things that is simply another issue to battle on and virtue signal about for both sides. I think that Trump has a base that wants to be fed certain lines about the transgender topic, and he will occasionally feed them that, and I think that that's really the extent of how he feels. I find that some people on the right have a misconception that transgenderism is an invention of the political left or a consequence of gender studies rather than a phenomenon that has been around for a very long time, if not forever, and likely isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and it is real people. I think, like, in the minds of people who have never met a trans person, like, all they know is what they hear from the media and on social media. It's just like something invented by the left. It's just like a political thing. So I do feel that's probably how Trump feels. I do. I mean, there really exists no interviews where Trump explicitly discusses transgender people. So I don't really know how he feels. And I feel like everyone kind of wants me to know how he feels and talk about it. And I don't know. The military ban thing was shitty in a lot of ways. I understand it in other ways. But other than that, a lot of these headlines that come out turn out to not even be real. So I don't really know how to feel half the time. The other thing that I think is important to mention is that, you know, I care about trans issues. And if you're watching this as a supporter of mine, you probably care at least a little bit, unless you're, you know, subscribe to me for another reason. But I think sometimes when you care and you're invested deeply into an issue, you kind of, your judgment is clouded as to the extent for which the entire world cares. And I also feel like trans issues in the grand scheme of the world are not like the most important thing. Like, they're important to me, don't get me wrong. And I think they should be more important to more people, but I don't know. I will say, if anyone's watching who can hook it up, I would love to interview the president, talk to the president on camera, possibly, pick his brain a little bit, maybe provide some healing for the trans community and bridge a divide. I do feel like that's my purpose in general with everything that I do, so maybe that'll happen. Let's all will that to happen. It's gonna happen. So with that being said, that is my long form and nuanced opinion on Trump as he relates to the trans community and the trans community as they relate to Trump. Make sure you guys subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're not. I know you're gonna watch 4 or 5 more videos. I know you've already probably peeped 4 or 5. You might as well just join the family. I don't have any friends, so I kind of need subscribers. Oh my God. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter and Instagram because I post on there way more than I do on YouTube, and you gotta keep up with those to keep up with me. And I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.